Westchester, Los Angeles, a suburb inside a city and the unofficial home of the kid with the lemonade stand.
Have you ever been to this little gem of a neighborhood? You may not know it, but if you've ever been to Los Angeles, Hollywood, or Disneyland, you've probably been to, or at least driven through Westchester.
We speeding on the 405 passing Westchester.
Most people in Los Angeles haven't really heard of it, and may even think Westchester refers to a county with the same name in New York. But no.
Historically, Westchester has, well, kind of just been there, minding its own business, buying a bunch of lemonade and Girl Scout cookies. And then, all of a sudden, bam, it's on the map, hanging out with the cool kids, Playa Vista, Santa Monica, Venice. So, how did this happen?
This is crazy. Look at that. Big ol' LAX. Yeah, we in LA, y'all.
Westchester's story begins with the Tongva, who harvested seeds, nuts, and fruits in the area, and fished in the saltwater and freshwater lagoons. The Tongva made their homes in the lowlands, along what the Spanish later named Bayona Creek, and in the high bluffs on the southwest edge of what is today the city of Los Angeles, California. After the Spanish arrived in 1542, the Tongva population was decimated, and land grants divided the Los Angeles basin. The land south of Bayona became part of Rancho Sao Sol Redondo. The oldest building in the neighborhood, the Centinela Adobe, was built in 1834 and is known as the birthplace of the city of Inglewood. At the turn of the 20th century, the area was a quiet agricultural landscape. Pacific Electric, the largest electric railway system in the world in the 1920s, led people from the urban core to the beachfront communities. The major expansion of Mines Field into Los Angeles International Airport led to a demand for defense worker housing, initiating a planned community of 10,000 people. A post-war suburbanization and housing boom followed, as returning veterans and their families established roots in this tranquil, low-density neighborhood with a small-town ambiance around a major center of the airline industry. Westchester has historic movie theaters that are now office buildings, classic Googie architecture, and McMansions that dot the suburbs. Bordered by El Segundo in the south, Inglewood in the east, Culver City in the north, and Marina del Rey and Playa del Rey on the west. Westchester has a central location. The LA Times Mapping LA project portrays Westchester's borders as such, while the Los Angeles City Planning Community Plan includes the community of Playa del Rey on the west. Playa Vista, a planned community that began development in 2002, is also included. This is the area now known as Silicon Beach.
The median price for a house here is about $1.5 million, with the low of about 1.2 and a high of about $3 million. Now, in the past 10 years, it's gone up in value by about 140% and about 240% in the past 20 years.
This has led to Westchester evolving into a bit of a techie utopia, according to the LA Times, with its close proximity to tech hubs in Venice, Playa Vista, Culver City, and El Segundo, making Westchester an appealing home buying destination for technology workers. Meanwhile, homeless populations continue to surge in Los Angeles.
And as for condos, well, there's really not a lot of options for condos in Westchester. It's mostly single-family homes, which is one reason why Westchester feels more like a suburb.
From data gathered, people enjoy the small town feeling of living in a big city, which is represented by a very interesting flag.
The flag is great. Those serrated borders between the green and yellow and red vertical stripes, fantastic. You don't see them in many other places, certainly in American city flags.
Speaking of symbols, in Kevin Lynch's landmark work, The Image of the City, he writes of public images as the common mental pictures carried by large numbers of a city's inhabitants, areas of agreement which might be expected to appear in the interaction of a single physical reality, a common culture, and a basic physiological nature. In a study of Los Angeles in 1960, when asked to describe or symbolize the city as a whole, subjects used certain standard words, like spread out, spacious, formless, without centers. Said one subject, "It's as if you were going somewhere for a long time, and when you got there, you discovered there was nothing there after all."
I think Westchester really exemplifies that time in urban planning when the best practice was to keep functions as separate as you could. So residential areas should be residential and commercial areas should be commercial, and it's really a bad idea to mix those. So we've got all of these nice neighborhoods, but they're all kind of walled off by really major streets. There are no kind of natural gathering areas within those neighborhoods. Even the public facilities that we do have, the Westchester Park area and the recreation center, the golf course, things are pretty nondescript, and they're not really built as places for people to gather, to be. We don't really have entertainment sites. It's easy to drive through Westchester and not realize that you were driving through anybody's community.
We're kind of in our own little bubble here. I think that's the thing about Los Angeles in general too, is like people get caught in their own little kind of neighborhoods. I mean, it's very rare to go to other parts of the city, like on the opposite side, for example, and just do that seamlessly. There's always an element of traffic and always an element of getting in a car.
What are the current major stakeholders of this neighborhood? The biggest player undoubtedly is the Los Angeles International Airport, an ever-expanding transportation hub in the region, which will further connect Angelenos and visitors alike with the completion of the LAX People Mover in 2024. Loyola Marymount University, which moved from a downtown location in 1928 as Loyola College and helped spur housing growth in the neighborhood. The Otis College of Art and Design, the city's first independent professional school of art, which replaced the former IBM Aerospace headquarters in 1997. Google, a centerpiece of what is now known as Silicon Beach, who took over the hangar where Howard Hughes once built his Spruce Goose. The Westchester Veterans Light Rail Station on the Metro's K Line, which opened in 2022 and lies on the border of Westchester and Inglewood. In 2024, it will connect to the LAX Metro Transit Center station and facilitate ease of mobility for passengers between LAX and the Metro network for the very first time. SoFi Stadium, a 70,000 plus seat architectural marvel and entertainment complex, current home of the NFL's Rams and Chargers, and future site of the 2026 FIFA Men's World Cup and the 2028 Olympic Games. The Bionah Wetlands, an ecological reserve that is the second largest open space within the city limits of Los Angeles, behind Griffith Park. Owned by the state of California and managed by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Protected from urban development and home to rich biodiversity. Also home to the 6.7-mile-long Biona Creek bike path, which connects Culver City to the beach, and the Marvin Broad Bike Trail that runs along it. We can't forget perhaps the biggest stakeholder of all, the Pacific Ocean.
What we are proposing is 1 unit per 1,000 square feet, which for most of these lots would be about 6 units per lot.
What was supposed to be an informational meeting turns contentious.
Stop or I'm shutting the meeting down. And you won't get anything else.
So many people wanted to attend the neighborhood council meeting, long lines were turned away at the senior center. Most here came to say no to high rises in Westchester, like the one next door to Eric Moore.
Now I have a 6-story building, about 4 stories look down into my house, into my backyard. So this is going to be our retirement home, and we had nice privacy, and then all of a sudden that all changed.
You know, the high rises next to your home, I will note that for some people 3 stories is a high rise. There's very little of the community that is under consideration for zoning changes that would allow more than 5 stories.
City planners shared draft proposals, but insist nothing has been decided. Adding state laws have mandated some zoning changes, including doing away with parking restrictions for developments near mass transit. They also told the crowd there could be 3-story buildings on some residential lots, which could go up to 5 stories if developers include affordable housing.
New mixed-use projects and 5-story apartments continue to pop up around the Westchester neighborhood. On a recent visit to the neighborhood, I noticed at least 6 single-family homes and duplexes on Reading and Ramsgate Avenues fenced off with vacated and notice of demolition signs posted. One property, a 5-story, 15-unit multifamily complex at 8829 Reading Avenue, was under construction. I spoke to a local resident named Lupe, a single woman in her 30s who owns property in the neighborhood, who was walking her dog next to the building. I asked her what her community thinks of the new development.
Everybody always stops by and looks at it and just stares at it and can't believe how big it is. I mean, we knew they have the description and everything. I mean, the contractors are all nice, everybody's nice, but none of us like it.
The Community Alliance Concern for Westchester Playa is a group of local residents that have formed in response to the city's recent draft community plan update. They also address the city's approach to citizen participation and outreach regarding the upzoning of thousands of residential lots initially reserved for single-family units. On their site, which features 8829 Reading, the group questions the affordable housing component of the draft plan update, and they argue that a push for gross densification is to meet an affordable housing mandate of merely 10%. They also advocate for sensible growth, strategic planning, and the repurposing of existing office buildings, while claiming the update fails to adequately address traffic mitigation, public safety, planned development, green space, community gathering spaces, and other infrastructure needs. This is all taking place in a state where Senate Bill 9 was passed to address the housing crisis. The bill, which went into effect on January 1st, 2022, aims to reduce the cost of housing in California by increasing housing supply and density and overriding municipal and county zoning laws requiring single-family zoning. The official SB 9 site says that the bill allows no more than 4 units on what is currently a single-family parcel and encourages neighborhood-scale homes, meaning modifications to a property need to be in keeping with the look of the neighborhood. The new property at 8829 Reading, however, takes advantage of R3 Tier 3 zoning in replacing a triplex and a fourplex. This allows for an 18-unit building, while California's density bonus law generates the possibility of a 32-unit development at a location like 8829 Reading Avenue.
On the one hand, the reality is, there will be some places where 5-story, possibly even 8-story buildings will be adjacent to single-family residences. If they rezone the corridors for more aggressive mixed-use development in particular. So if all of that were rezoned, then yes, it's possible that I, at one point, would be looking at, a 5-story apartment building. That wouldn't be my first choice, to, have that as my view as opposed to the neighbors' houses that I see now. It's true that what we refer to as the status quo groups, that they've really seized on an image that will, in my assessment, will naturally rile people up, even though there's no way it's going to happen to their a true high-rise type thing.
Margaret, together with a group of local activists, founded Building a Better Westchester, which highlights folks like a teacher who can't afford to live in Westchester, a Westchester native who needs to leave California to afford to raise a family, and a resident who has to drive to run any errand because stores, restaurants, and services are all too far to walk.
We are already in a situation where effectively there is no R1 neighborhood left in California. The passage of SB 9 allows the property owners to put extra dwelling units on their property. And so I think, to me, helping people understand that not only is that sort of a change in the law, so, get over it, get used to it, it doesn't have to ruin your neighborhood. And part of what we're dealing with now is, after decades of preventing modest increases in density, we've got this huge problem that we have to solve. And part of that is what's driving putting in really big buildings in odd places. But you can go around Westchester and already see places where people have, having a nice duplex in your neighborhood doesn't change the nature of your neighborhood. Having someone add an ADU doesn't change the nature of your neighborhood.
Lupe, however, remains unconvinced.
I think just the problems it's going to bring: parking, rent control. Rent's very high right now, especially after the pandemic. Just the amount of people now that are going to live in the neighborhood. California
law also, and federal law, requires that we be committed to fair housing. And so the affirmatively furthering fair housing, to me, means single-family neighborhoods have to be in play too. We don't have to convert them all into mega apartment buildings, but we do have to be more welcoming to modest density increases. We really have to work hard at figuring out how to make ownership opportunities available. I think that's one thing that gets missed a lot when people say, okay, well, if we have to have that many more units, we build all these apartment buildings. So yeah, that it's important for people to have places to live, but it's also important for people to have, opportunities to own.
It's no secret that Los Angeles is a car-dependent city, and the neighborhood of Westchester is no different. The Westchester Playa del Rey area has a walk score of 61, which means it is somewhat walkable, as some errands can be accomplished on foot. The area has some transit, but a transit score of just 43. The closure of the Pacific Electric Railway system has led to some remnants of what once was. However, portions of local bus routes run by local agencies like the Culver City Bus serve some parts of the former route, and the Redondo Beach via Playa del Rey line is mostly traversable by bicycle. The Marvin Broad Bike Trail, a 22-mile paved bicycle path that runs along the shoreline of Santa Monica Bay, also known as the Strand, runs along the former route.
LA has a lot of potential to be a great bikeable city. I think with the weather and the fact that it's a very flat space, there's a lot of great opportunities for people to ride their bikes. I think the one thing though that's still, I think it's just because LA is such a sprawling place. You know, people are a bit lazy in the sense of like they might not want to ride the 4 or 5 miles from where we're at to Venice or to Culver City or to Santa Monica to like go to work. You know, I think it's even though there's possibilities for it, I think it's just things are kind of so spread out, it makes it more difficult for people to actually do. So that's why people revert back to just getting in their cars. I mean, the traffic in LA is definitely getting worse, and I think I think people are fed up of being in their cars, but they don't really know where else to turn. It's kind of a lack of commitment to the metro, or it's a lack of commitment to getting on their bike and riding, or getting on a scooter or on a skateboard, or, you know, self-propelled vehicles. And another thing to touch on too is just the safety factor. I think because it's so unsafe to do those activities because there's so many cars, I think that's another deterrent that people don't do it.
LAX is always the elephant in the room, and the expansion of LAX, and so the expectation that there will be a lot more car traffic and that the car traffic goes through Westchester, that is an issue, but I suspect that is being overstated as well. That is going to add traffic anyway, but the LAX is also doing a lot to both add and create incentives for alternatives to driving to the airport. It's a couple decades away, but we expect another, I would hope, sort of standard light rail line. So we're going to have another metro line coming down from the valley. There's just a lot of variables that lead me to believe that for the most part, traffic will be manageable, and to the extent that it becomes more inconvenient, that's more a good thing than a bad thing. I think driving in your car is going to have to get more miserable for more of us to give them up, or to give them up more of the time.
As a cyclist, I would love to be able to see more accessibility for that, which when it comes to thinking that out, I think it's just a matter of, creating bike safe lanes. I think that would open up a lot of doors and at least encourage people to feel a little more safe when traveling by bike or by scooter or by skateboard or however else you can get around outside of using a vehicle. I did a little skateboarding in Portland last year, and there are streets in Portland where that's the case too, where it's like certain northbound, southbound, east, west roads, you can't drive on them. So, I mean, that's something that'd be interesting to explore here, like in different parts of LA, is like the network is there, and, at least then it could maybe try to keep automobiles like on the main thoroughfares, and then maybe side streets could be devoted to other forms of transport. I think that would be really interesting in terms of planning.
Planning recommendations need to be strongly motivated, specific, and feasible. And so I follow the 5 principles for the 21st century urban development model as presented by UN Habitat's New Urban Agenda. These include adequate space for streets and public space in an efficient street network, mixed land use, social mix, adequate density, and limited land use specialization. Additionally, I implemented Castell's Space of Place to Space of Flow framework, outlined in Dr. Yoshiki Yamagata and Dr. Perry Yang's Urban Systems Design, creating sustainable smart cities in the Internet of Things era. They write, "In human civilization, people tend to construct their life in reference to places by their homes, neighborhoods, towns, and cities. A space of place or a place-based society is defined as a locale in which form, function, and meaning are self-contained within a boundary of territorial contiguity that is grounded on history, culture, and identity. Additionally, a new mode of spatial organization, or a new way of organizing urban form, is space of flow, a counterproposition to the space of place, the material arrangements that allow for simultaneously social practices. My planning recommendations also follow the Sustainable Development Goals, as outlined by the UN, the 5 pillars of which are partnership, peace, planet, people, and prosperity. Recommendation 1. Affordable housing opportunities that welcome diversity of income and individual, especially in LAX adjacent corridors with equitable access to amenities. People need to stop leaving Westchester or just driving through it. Instead, they should stay to live, work, shop, and play. Proximity matters. Allowing more businesses to thrive near where people live, especially along the major corridors along La Tijera, Sepulveda, Manchester, and Lincoln, will help alleviate traffic congestion and work towards solving the housing crisis. Additionally, density in these corridors means nothing without affordability. Give the people who work at the local bank, restaurant, or retail store the opportunity to live and own in Westchester. Recommendation 2. Safe, well-connected bicycle and micromobility infrastructure that seamlessly connects main arteries to the Bayona and Marvin Broad non-motorized paths. The foundation is there. It's time to take the next step for people to get around in safer and healthier ways. One way to do this immediately is by designating a separate bicycle lane along Lincoln Boulevard en route to the Bayona Path, so people can easily commute to Playa Vista, Culver City, the Marina, and the beach cities, or just simply ride for fun. Recommendation 3. Create places to be through pedestrian-friendly placemaking. Districts like the Westchester Triangle can be pedestrianized to enliven businesses, invite residents to safely gather, and encourage folks to discover more shared public images. With the new mixed-use project at 6136 West Manchester set to break ground in 2025, now is an opportunity to radically rethink the urban core of Westchester, transform West 87th Street into a pedestrian-only zone, and begin the process of redeveloping its adjacent parking lot into a public plaza for the community to enjoy. Additionally, use the World Cup and Olympics hosting opportunities as transformational legacy events for greater symbiosis between housing, transportation, and livability.
I definitely see the impact of planning for the Olympics on the development plans at LAX. It kind of speeded up thinking and investment in alternative ways to get to and from the airport. It could be that the experience of the Olympics will help people see that, yeah, it really is doable. I will say, I was here for the '84 Olympics, and I was one of the many who expected cause for trepidation. And it was one of the best times I've ever had in LA. It was just amazing. It was an amazing experience. I hope our expectations for 28 aren't too high based on how well '84 went.